All right, buckle up, everybody. We're diving deep into Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas today.
Should be a good one.
Yeah, this one is a classic. We've got some juicy excerpts ready to unpack. And today it's all about, cracking that code of the trader's mindset.
Right.
Like, you ever notice how trading can almost feel easy?
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're on, a winning streak. But then, bam, reality hits.
It really does.
It's a real head scratcher.
Yeah, it's a classic paradox, right? The markets are always humming. There's opportunity everywhere. Money's changing hands constantly. But that consistent winning, that's the real challenge.
Totally. And it's funny because the book, it highlights this wild fact, like some of the biggest trading losers.
Oh, yeah.
They're, doctors, lawyers, engineers, all these folks who are clearly super smart in other areas.
Yeah, you'd think.
Right. It makes you wonder, what's the missing ingredient?
Well, that's exactly what Douglas gets at. It all boils down to mindset. These successful traders, they just think differently. They've developed this mental game that allows them to thrive in the pressure cooker of the markets.
Hmm.
You know,
Mm.
all those ups and downs.
So it's not just about learning those fancy chart patterns and indicators. It's really about training our brains to think like consistent winners. I get that, but honestly, traders' mindset, it sounds a little like a self-help cliche, What does that actually look like in the real world?
I hear you. It's easy to toss around these buzzwords, but let's bring it back down to earth, all right? Think about your own trading for a second. Have you ever second-guessed a trade, even if it met all your criteria, just because you were scared of losing?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Or maybe, the opposite, you've clung to a losing position, hoping for a miracle rebound.
Oh, ouch. Yep, been there, done that. Fear and hope, not exactly the dynamic duo for trading success.
Exactly. That's what Douglas is highlighting, how our emotions can hijack our logic.
Yeah.
Fear, especially, that's the big one.
Fear, yeah, I get it. We've all felt it. But the book, it talks about accepting risk as the key. I'm not sure I follow that. How does accepting risk make trading less scary?
I know, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? But think of it this way. Fully acknowledging the risk that's always present, it actually kind of takes the emotional charge out of it. It helps us become more objective.
Interesting.
Douglas uses this really cool analogy. He talks about, a kid encountering a snake for the first time. They're curious, right? Not afraid.
Yeah,
The fear, that comes later, learned through experience or what others tell them.
right.
Trading's kind of similar. Many new traders, they start out fearless, then they learn to be afraid.
That's a great point. We're conditioned to fear risk, but in trading, that can really mess us up.
Totally. And to combat that, Douglas lays out these 5 fundamental truths. They're like the bedrock of a successful trader's mindset.
5 truth. Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with truth number 1.
All right, so truth number 1 is anything can happen. The market's this complex beast, right? It's influenced by countless factors, things we can't always see or predict.
Right, like what other traders are doing, global events, all that stuff.
Exactly. Even with the most brilliant analysis, there's always an element of surprise.
No crystal ball can predict it all. All right, what's truth number 2?
Truth number 2, you don't need to know the future to make money.
Okay, I like that.
Trading's not about having some, magical foresight.
Right.
It's about probability.
Interesting. So it's more about understanding the odds.
Exactly, and having an edge.
Got it. What's truth number 3?
This one's super important. Wins and losses, they're randomly distributed.
Okay.
Even with a killer strategy, you can't know which specific trade is going to be a winner or loser.
So even with the best laid plans, no guarantees.
Exactly. And truth number 4 builds on that. An edge is simply a higher probability of success, not a certainty.
So an edge is about tilting the odds in our favor over many trades.
It's not about trying to pick individual winners and losers. It's about a statistical advantage over time.
Okay, so we've got anything can happen, don't need to know the future, wins and losses are random, an edge is just a probability. What's the 5th and final truth? Drum roll, please.
Here it is. Every moment in the market is unique. Meaning, even those patterns that seem identical, based on historical data, they can play out differently.
So past performance doesn't guarantee future results.
Exactly. No 2 moments in the market are ever truly the same.
Okay, so we've got these 5 truths. How do they actually help us overcome fear and trade better? It's one thing to understand it intellectually, but how do they translate into action?
These 5 truths together, they act as a sort of compass. They guide us toward objectivity. They help us detach from those emotional biases and view the market more neutrally, almost like a scientist observing an experiment.
So it's about letting go of those emotional attachments, the fear, the hope, all that stuff, and just seeing the market for what it is.
Exactly. And that leads us to this really crucial skill. It's what separates those consistently profitable traders from the rest.
Oh, I'm all ears. What's the secret sauce?
It's called thinking in probabilities.
Okay, thinking in probabilities. I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
Think about casinos for a minute. They rake in the dough consistently, right? From games of chance.
Yeah, that's their whole business model.
Exactly. And they don't try to predict who's going to win each hand of blackjack or roulette spin. They understand the odds are in their favor over the long run. They just keep the games running.
So we're like the casino. Each trade is like a spin of the roulette wheel. We don't need to know which specific spin will win as long as our edge works in our favor over time.
That's the idea.
Hmm.
Those winning traders, they embrace that uncertainty. They're not trying to pick individual winners or losers. They just focus on executing every trade that fits their predefined edge, their system.
Okay, so it's about having a system and sticking to it consistently, even when there are those inevitable losing trades along the way. But how do we actually build that level of trust and discipline? How do we make sure we don't get swayed by those emotions and abandon our plan?
That's where Douglas's 7 principles for consistent trading come in. They provide a framework for making those rational decisions, even when things get heated.
7 principles. All right, I'm ready. Let's dive into them.
All right, principle number 1, it echoes what we've been talking about. It's called objectively identifying your edges,
Meaning?
meaning you got to have a clearly defined trading system.
Not just flying by the seat of my pants.
Exactly. It's got to be based on a real statistical advantage, something that's proven over time, not just a hunch or a feeling.
Okay, so no more impulsive trades or gut feelings. But doesn't that make trading sound a bit too, I don't know, mechanical? Where's the room for creativity and intuition?
That's a great question, and it's a common misconception that systematic trading eliminates intuition. You see, this principle, it really focuses on what we call the mechanical stage of trading.
A mechanical state.
Yeah, which is all about consistency and discipline. Think of it like building a solid foundation.
Okay, I'm with you.
Intuition and creativity, they definitely have their place, but they come later once you've mastered those mechanics.
So first we learn the rules, build that discipline, and then we can start tapping into the more subjective, intuitive side of trading.
You got it. It's a progression, a journey.
Okay, I like that. So once we've defined our edge, what's next?
Next comes a big one. Predefining risk on every trade. This is where a lot of traders, they trip up.
In what way?
They might have this fantastic entry strategy, but they don't have a solid plan for what happens if they're wrong.
Oof. Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
We get so focused on that potential win that we forget to consider how much we're willing to lose.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like I have blinders on.
It's a common trap, but predefining your risk, that's non-negotiable.
What does that look like in practice?
It means knowing exactly how much you're willing to lose on a trade before you even enter it.
Okay, so we're taking emotion out of the equation, right? We're deciding ahead of time how much we're comfortable risking.
Exactly. It's about making those decisions in a calm, rational state, not when you're in the heat of the moment.
I see how that would be helpful. So we've got our edge defined, our risk predefined. What's principle number 3?
Principle number 3 is accepting risk or letting go of the trade.
So it's decision time.
Exactly. Once you've defined your risk, you've got to make a choice. You either fully accept that risk and enter the trade, or you decide it's not worth it and you walk away.
Okay, so there's no waffling, no second guessing. Either I'm all in or I'm out.
Precisely. It's about being decisive.
I like that. What's principle number 4?
Principle number 4 is all about execution. It's called acting on your edges without hesitation.
So no more analysis paralysis, just got to pull the trigger.
Exactly. If you've done your homework, you've identified the edge, you've defined your risk, and you've made the decision to take the trade, then you execute swiftly, decisively. No second guessing yourself.
This sounds like it takes a lot of self-trust, being able to just take action and trust the process.
You're absolutely right. It all boils down to trust, trusting the system you've developed, trusting your analysis, and trusting yourself.
No more what ifs or maybes.
Exactly. And that's where the work we do in that mechanical stage, defining our edge, predefining our risk, all that really comes into play.
It's like we're laying the groundwork for being able to execute those trades confidently without getting bogged down by fear or doubt.
Exactly. Now, once you're in a trade, Principle number 5 kicks in, taking profit systematically.
Ah, yes, profit taking, the part we all dream about. But I'll admit, it can be tricky. Sometimes I get so caught up in hoping for a bigger win that I hold on for too long.
Greed, it's just as powerful as fear. Just like we predefine our risk to manage fear, we need a clear plan for taking profits to manage greed.
So it's about having that exit strategy on both sides of the trade, both for losses and for profits.
Precisely, it's about having a systematic approach, taking emotion out of the equation.
Okay, that makes sense. So principle number 6.
Principle number 6 is all about continuous improvement. It's called monitoring for potential errors.
So it's not just about following the rules blindly, it's about constantly evaluating our performance and looking for ways to improve.
Exactly. Trading consistently, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. It requires constant vigilance, constant self-evaluation.
We're always learning and growing, always striving to refine our process.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final principle, principle number 7. It might sound simple, but it's crucial. Never violate these principles.
So these aren't just suggestions, they're like commandments.
Exactly. These principles are the bedrock of your trading success. You can't just pick and choose which ones to follow based on your mood or how you're feeling that day.
It would be such a shame to spend all this time developing a solid trading system, honing our mindset, only to throw it all away by letting our emotions get the better of us.
Exactly. These principles need to become more than just rules. They need to become ingrained into your very being as a trader.
Part of our DNA.
You got it. Now, to help you really internalize these principles and put them into practice, Douglas suggests this really powerful yet simple exercise.
Ooh, I love a good challenge. Tell me more about this trading exercise.
It involves trading your system for 20 consecutive occurrences of your edge without any deviations. It's about creating this controlled environment to practice thinking in probabilities and building self-trust.
So we're putting ourselves through a mental boot camp for traders. We're forced to confront our fears and biases head on. That sounds intense.
It can be intense for sure, but it's also incredibly insightful. By consistently putting ourselves in those trading situations, we start to develop a feel for the market. We begin to recognize those subtle signals that we might miss if we're not paying close attention.
It's like we're training our subconscious minds, building that intuitive sense of the market.
Exactly. The more we expose ourselves to those real-world trading scenarios, the more refined our intuition becomes.
Wow, this is a lot to unpack. It's like trading isn't just about the technicals, it's a whole journey of self-discovery.
It absolutely is. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Trading consistently, it's not just about mastering those charts and indicators. It's about mastering ourselves. It's about developing the mental and emotional intelligence to navigate the market's ups and downs without letting fear or greed control our decisions.
I'm starting to get it now. This is all really fascinating, but I have to admit, it still feels a little overwhelming. Like, where do we even begin with all of this?
That's a great question, and that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
All right, so picking up where we left off, let's delve a bit deeper into those 7 principles for consistent trading.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready to unpack those.
All right, so that first principle, objectively identifying your edges, it's really the cornerstone, It's about having that clear, well-defined trading system.
Right, no more winging it, huh?
Exactly. And that system needs to be rooted in a real, statistical advantage.
Something that's actually been proven to work over time.
Exactly. Not just a hunch or a feeling, however good it might seem in the moment.
Right, so no more impulsive trades based on gut feelings.
Yeah.
It's all about having a system with a proven track record.
Precisely. But I know what you're thinking. It can sound a little robotic, right? Like, where's the room for creativity and intuition in all this?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That's a great question, and it's a common misconception. See, this principle is really about the mechanical stage of trading.
The mechanical.
Yeah, which is all about building that consistency and discipline. Think of it like constructing a solid foundation for your trading.
Okay, I'm with you.
Intuition and creativity, they absolutely have their place, but they come later. Once you've really mastered those mechanics.
So we learn the rules, build the discipline, and then we can start tapping into that more subjective, intuitive side of trading.
You got it. It's a progression, a journey.
Okay, I like that. It's all starting to make more sense now. So once we've defined our edge, what's the next step?
All right, so next up is a big one. Predefining risk on every trade.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is where a lot of traders, even experienced ones, they stumble.
Really? In what way?
They might have a killer entry strategy. They're great at identifying those opportunities, but they don't have a solid plan for if they're wrong.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem. It's like you get so focused on winning that you forget to plan for the possibility of losing.
It happens to the best of us. We get excited about the potential reward and we kind of, overlook the potential risk.
It's like tunnel vision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But predefining your risk, that's non-negotiable. There's no way around it if you want to be a consistent trader.
So what does that look like in practice?
It means knowing exactly how much you're willing to lose on a trade and deciding that before you even enter the trade.
So we're making those decisions with a clear head, not when we're caught up in the heat of the moment.
Exactly. Taking the emotion out of it as much as possible.
Okay, I see how that would be helpful. I can get behind that. So our edge is defined, our risk is predefined. What's principle number 3?
Principle number 3 is all about that moment of truth. It's called accepting risk or letting go of the trade.
So no more hemming and hawing?
No more hemming and hawing. Once you've defined your risk, you've got to make a choice. You either fully accept that risk and enter the trade, or you decide it's not worth it and you walk away. No in between.
I like that. It's about being decisive.
Exactly. No waffling, no second guessing.
Okay, what about principle number 4?
Principle number 4 is all about action, taking action. It's called acting on your edges without hesitation.
So no more analysis paralysis, right? We've done our homework. Now it's time to execute.
Precisely. If you've identified a valid edge, you've predefined your risk, and you've made the decision to take the trade, then you execute swiftly, decisively. No second-guessing yourself, no hesitation.
This sounds like it requires a lot of self-trust, being able to just pull the trigger and trust that the process will play out.
It does. It absolutely does. But that's the beauty of those first few principles. We're essentially building up to this point. We're laying that groundwork of self-trust by defining our edge, predefining our risk, so that when it comes time to execute, we can do so with confidence.
So no more what-ifs or maybes.
Exactly. We trust the system, we trust ourselves, and we take action. And then once we're in a trade, principle number 5 comes into play, taking profits systematically.
Ah, yes, profit taking.
Yeah.
The fun part, right. But I gotta admit, sometimes it's hard to actually pull the trigger and take those profits.
I hear that. It's tempting to get greedy, to hold on for just a little longer, hoping for an even bigger win.
Right, like maybe it'll keep going up and up.
It's a natural human tendency, but greed, it can be just as dangerous as fear in trading.
So how do we overcome that?
Just like we predefine our risk to manage fear, we need to have a clear plan for taking profits to manage greed. It's about having that exit strategy in place on both sides of the trade, both for losses and for profits.
So it's like having a stop-loss order to limit my losses, but on the winning side, right?
Exactly. We predetermine our profit target so that when the price hits that level, we take our profits, no questions asked, no second guessing, no getting greedy.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. So what about principle number 6?
Principle number 6 is all about continuous improvement. It's called monitoring for potential errors.
So we're not just blindly following the rules, we're constantly analyzing our performance, looking for ways to refine our approach.
You got it. Consistent trading is not a static thing. It's dynamic. It's evolving. It requires constant vigilance, constant self-evaluation.
Always striving to be better.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final principle, principle number 7. It might sound simple, but it's arguably the most important of them all. Never violate these principles.
So these are more than just suggestions. These are like the fundamental laws of trading success.
Precisely. They're the bedrock of everything we've been talking about. We can't just, pick and choose which principles to follow based on how we're feeling that day or what the market is doing.
It would be like spending all this time building this amazing house, only to like kick out a few of the support beams.
Exactly. It would all come crumbling down. These principles, they need to become more than just rules. They need to become integrated into your very being as a trader. They need to become part of your trading DNA.
Part of our identity as traders.
Exactly. And to help you really ingrain these principles and experience their power firsthand, Douglas suggests this incredibly valuable exercise.
I am all ears. Lay it on me.
It involves trading your system without any deviation for 20 consecutive occurrences of your edge.
20 consecutive trades, no
Right.
matter what.
No matter what. It's about creating a controlled environment where you can practice thinking in probabilities, building self-trust, and really seeing how these principles work in action.
So it's like putting ourselves through this like mental boot camp for traders.
That's a great way to put it. It's not easy. It can be really challenging at times, but it's designed to expose any internal conflicts you might have with those principles of consistency. It shines a light on those mental blocks that are holding you back.
It's like forcing ourselves to confront those fears and biases head on.
Exactly. And by repeatedly putting ourselves in those trading situations, we start to develop this deeper understanding of the market. We begin to recognize those subtle signals that our conscious minds might miss.
So we're training our subconscious minds, almost like building this intuitive sense of the market.
Precisely. The more we expose ourselves to those real-world trading scenarios, the more refined our intuition becomes, and the more confident we become in our ability to execute our plan.
Wow, this is all really starting to click for me now. It's like trading isn't just about the technicals, it's this whole journey of self-discovery.
You're absolutely right. It's about mastering ourselves just as much as we master the markets.
So we've talked about mastering the mechanics, thinking in probabilities, managing risk, and now we're starting to touch on this idea of intuition and self-awareness. This is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to admit, it also feels a bit overwhelming. Like, how do we actually put this into practice? Where do we go from here?
That's a great question, and it's a perfect segue into the next phase of our journey, the subjective stage of trading, and that's where we'll pick up in part 3 of our deep dives.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, we've explored that mechanical stage, those 7 core principles, even that intense trading exercise.
Yeah, that one's a real eye-opener.
It is, but now you're talking about this next level, this subjective stage.
Right.
It sounds kind of mysterious, almost like, I don't know, mystical.
Well, it is where things get really interesting. The subjective stage, it's where experience meets instinct.
Okay.
And trading decisions, they start to flow from this deeper understanding of the market. It's less about, rigid rules and more about a feel for the market.
So are we talking about like that zone that athletes and artists describe
Yeah.
where their actions become almost effortless?
You got it.
Like they're just in the flow.
Exactly.
Right.
And in trading, that intuition, it's not about throwing logic and analysis out the window.
Right.
It's about integrating all those elements
Okay.
into a more, holistic understanding.
So it's not one or the other, it's finding that balance.
Exactly. That intuitive trader, they see beyond the charts and indicators.
Okay.
They start to perceive those subtle shifts in market sentiment, those underlying currents of fear and greed.
Almost like a sixth sense for the market.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They can sense those shifts in momentum before they even show up in the indicators.
Wow. So how do we develop this intuition? Is it something we can train ourselves to do, or are some people just born with that gift?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And to be honest, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
Some people, sure, they might have a natural predisposition.
Yeah.
But intuition, it can definitely be nurtured and strengthened, through experience, practice, and self-awareness.
So it's like any other skill.
Exactly.
The more we use it, the stronger it becomes.
You got it. So it's
Yeah.
not about being born with this magical ability.
Yeah.
It's about honing your skills, developing that intuitive sense over time.
So what are some things we can do to, I don't know, flex that intuition muscle?
One of the most powerful tools is mindfulness. Really paying attention to your thoughts, emotions, even your physical sensations while you're trading.
So it's about becoming more aware of our internal state.
Exactly. Noticing those whispers of intuition that we might otherwise miss.
Okay, so quieting the mental chatter.
Exactly. And that trading exercise we talked about, that 20 trade challenge, that plays a big role here too.
Oh, you mean the one where we trade our system for 20 consecutive occurrences of our edge without any deviations no matter what?
That's the one. It's not just about building discipline. It's also about developing intuition. Well, by repeatedly putting yourself in those real-world trading situations,
Right.
you start to develop this feel for the market's nuances. You start to pick up on those patterns and subtle signals that your conscious mind might miss.
Almost like we're training our subconscious to see what our conscious mind can't.
Exactly. That's a great way to put
The
it.
more we do it, the more we can trust those gut feelings.
Exactly. And that's where it all comes together. All those principles and practices we've talked about,
Yeah.
mastering those mechanics, thinking in probabilities, managing risk, developing self-awareness, it all builds towards that goal of intuitive trading.
So it's like this gradual evolution.
You could say that
Yeah.
as we master those earlier stages, that intuition, it naturally starts to emerge.
It's like we're unlocking new levels of understanding.
Exactly. And remember, intuitive trading, it's not about becoming some kind of market psychic. It's not about predicting the future with 100% accuracy.
Right. It's about developing this deeper understanding of the market.
That's it. It's about recognizing those patterns, sensing those shifts in momentum, and ultimately trusting your judgment.
Trusting ourselves.
Exactly. So we've talked about the mechanical stage, the 7 principles, the trading exercise, and now this subjective stage. It's been quite a journey. What final thoughts would you leave our listeners with, as they embark on their own trading adventures?
Well, I'd say remember this. The journey to becoming a consistently successful trader, it's really a journey of self-discovery.
I love that.
Embrace the challenges, cultivate that self-awareness, and trust the process. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what works for you.
What works for you?
Exactly, for your personality, for your trading style.
It's about finding our own rhythm in the markets.
That's it.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the fascinating world of trading psychology. Until next time, happy trading, everyone.